In determining what you're going to work on a project, you first have the project description that was given to you by your company sponsor. That project description tells you what it is they want you to do. So, they told you what they wanted. What are you waiting for? Just go out and get started. Does that seem like a good idea to you? Well, in my experience, that's a terrible idea. Now, the reason it's a terrible idea is because in communicating the project deliverables from the company sponsor to you and the field and the team, there are only two things of which you can be absolutely certain. One, whatever they were thinking about when they wrote the description is not what you're thinking about when you read it. Whatever they asked for is not going to be what they need. Now, those seem like pretty bold statements. You remember the discussion of the tree, in which we learned that even a very simple concept like a tree can be misunderstood. Because people have different backgrounds, cultures, and understandings, they are going to make different interpretation of a set of words that are written down. So you have to go through a process to restate and make sure that you understand that, just as we talked about in the tree example. Now, secondly, let's talk about this issue of what they asked for is not going to be what they need. Well, why would that? Why would they ask you for something they don't need? Well, in many cases, they submitted this project 2 weeks to 10 months ago. Much may have changed during that time, both in the company and in the world, that would make this project not as relevant in the way that they originally presented it. They may have spent 15 minutes to an hour in creating the project definition. You're going to spend, as a team, 500 to 700 hours working on this project. You will have a much better concept of this over time than they ever had in the 15 minutes to an hour that they took to just write up the project. This project may be a very small part of the things that they're doing, and they may have only given it a light thought as they moved ahead. They're very busy. They have many things going on. This may not be the number one thing they're working on. As I said, you're going to spend a lot of hours as a team working on this, and you'll have a chance to think about it. But the real issue is they were probably thinking about tasks, and we're going to have you add value by thinking about decisions. Now, let me tell you why I think that this is a big issue. When I worked in my career, at one point I was a director of business research. And so when I took this job over, I thought, kind of cool, I like business research, and I'd been in marketing and sales and supply chain previously, and I thought the business research would be a lot of fun. But the first thing I learned after I took the job was that they had done a survey of all of the service groups in the company. And of all of the 10 service groups in the company, the business research function was dead last, number 10, worst in the company. I thought, oh, great. Now I'm in charge of the worst function in the company. So I went off to meet with the business directors to understand why were you unhappy? What was the problem? And I asked them, did my teams not do what you asked them to do? They said, oh, no, they did what I asked. Well, did they not do it on time? Oh, no, they did it on time. Well, did they do a poor job of it? Oh, no, they did a really good job. Well, I go, then I'm confused. They did what you asked, they did a good job, and they did it on time. Why were you so unhappy with them? They said, well, the reality is your stuff just isn't very valuable. When we ask you a question, you give us an answer, and all we have at the end is more questions than we started with. Your projects aren't creating value for us. Well, that took me back. And I went back and we met with the teams and we discussed, why is this happening? What can we do to be more valuable? And we realized that the problem was that we were working on tasks. We were looking on getting little bits of information. We were looking on small projects that didn't have any outcome planned. And so it wasn't valuable. It wasn't creating anything. So We said, we're not going to do that anymore. That's waste. It's a waste of our time. It's a waste of the business manager's time. We're not going to do it. So what we're going to do is we're going to require them to tell us what decision are you going to make and what action are you going to take. And if they can't tell us that and how our project will help them do it, then we're not going to do the project. Well, first time we told a business manager we weren't going to do their project because they wouldn't tell us that. He said, well, I don't have to tell you what I'm doing. I'm the business manager. You just have to do it. And I said, no. They brought me in, and I talked to the business manager. I said, listen, I'm really tired of you guys making us look bad by asking us to do things that have no value. If you want us to work on something, show us where it has value. Now, the business managers realized we were right. And so they would tell us what decision they were trying to make. Now, almost always, whatever they asked us to do was not enough to make the decision or take the action. So we would ask them, well, what other information would you need to be able to make the decision or take the action? And so they would give us something else. And then we'd talk about, well, now can you make the decision? Well, no. What else do you need? And we would continue this until we had a list. They said, okay, with all of that, I can make the decision. Now, almost always, that was more work than we could do. So we'd say, okay, let's be realistic here. Do you really need every piece in here? Or is some of this, do we already have a pretty good idea what the answer is and that's good enough? And they would say, well, yeah, B and D and G here, we kind of know that. Maybe you could just check it. Just, do a little quick check. You don't have to go do basic research on it. But if our idea is kind of close, then that's good enough. And, this piece down here, just give us a little bit of stuff on that. And then these 4 points, those are the big ones. Those are the ones we really want you to go do the project on. And so now we're off. We're off with a project that has the chance to succeed because we're working on important elements to the business upon which they want to make decisions and they want to take action. Once we implemented this process and created a template that you'll be provided in this class, a template that we used that allowed us to discuss the project in such a way that, one, we now had the same picture in our mind that they have in their mind, and two, was being driven toward actions to be taken and decisions to be made. Once we implemented this, over the next 12 months, we did projects based on this new approach. At the end of 12 months, they did another survey of the 10 service groups in the company. Business research went from being dead last, number 10, to number 2 in the company. All we really changed was increasing the value of the projects we did to make them more important and create more value. Our employees became more valuable. They had higher reputations. They were more easily promoted because people saw them creating value. We want you to create value on your projects. Make sure that you follow the steps in the process so that you have the same picture in your mind that they have in theirs, and you are creating value because your projects will lead toward valuable decisions and actions on the part of the company.